give me permission to record.
Oh, hold on. Whoops. Um, Allow record. There you go. Sorry, guys. Okay, so we are live right now. Tom,
Good.
are you able to record?
Yes, it's
Okay.
recording.
Okay, good. Okay, so good morning and welcome to our little live stream here. We'll just kind of wait a few minutes as people form in. I'll just kind of do a little bit of an intro here and talk a little bit about what we're doing here. So, Tom and I like to, get together periodically and do a show together. Sometimes we do it live, sometimes we record it. But it's been a little bit since we've done one. I've been kind of tied up with work all summer and some other family things and stuff going on around here. But things are starting to quiet down a little bit. So I had a few minutes and figured we could try and get together and catch up and see how our summers went and talk a little bit about some of the radio stuff that's been on our minds lately, and just kind of just chat here this morning for an hour or so and see where it takes us. So if there's anybody in the chat that wants to ask questions or have topics that they want to talk about, then that's feel free to do that. Well, let me turn it over to Tom. He can do a little bit of an intro too. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, this is a kind of an open agenda. We have some items that we want to discuss, but it's open. If you want to interrupt us because you thought of something, that's fine. Put something in the chat, and we're gonna go do it. Here we go.
Okay, hold on a minute. Let me just do something here. I just want to check what's going on. Okay, so I guess we're good to go.
Are you watching us?
Yeah, well, I've got the stream manager up, but
Right.
I wanted to check something else there for a minute. It wasn't quite set up the way I want it to be. Anyway, okay. So what I'll do now is we put together a little agenda. So we'll just flash this up on the screen here quick for everyone to take a look at. And so we'll just read through this there. So I think the video was covering it. Okay, so first off, we just like to always say that we're not experts. We're just a couple of radio enthusiasts who like to experiment with radio and share our experiences with all of you guys. We're not trying to, say that we're the the oracles of truth here. We're not trying to sell you anything. We just like to talk radio, and sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong, and that's where you guys come in the chat room. Let us know either way, if we're off course or something, or if you have something to add to anything that we're saying. So then, like I said, we put together just a few topics that we thought about covering this morning. We don't have to cover all of them. We don't have to cover any of them. Again, we'll kind of keep an eye on the chat and see if any topics come up from you guys. We'll talk about those too. Think of this as like an 80-meter rag chew. Anything goes. So anyway, the first topic we thought about was the old Sangean ATS 803 Realistic DX440 radios. Tom was talking about that in one of his shows earlier in the week, and I mentioned that I had a radio, and we thought maybe we'd show it off because Tom's been trying to get his hands on one of these for a while. So I thought maybe we could just kind of go through mine a little bit until he's able to find one for himself. And then the second topic was cleaning contacts. This is like switch contacts inside of a radio. I know Tom did a video on that and learned a few things here this week with playing with an old radio. So I think he wants to kind of go through some of that and then see if anybody else has any tips maybe out there. The third thing we thought we would talk about is SDR Uno version 1.40.1. As a lot of you who are SDR play enthusiasts know, they recently released an upgrade to the SDR Uno software, and we thought we'd go through it. Now, I haven't really played with it that much. I don't know that Tom has either, but we'll talk about what we know and see if anybody else has got any experience with it. It's something that I'm going to be playing with over the next couple of weeks here as we get into what I like to call radio season. as we start moving into late summer and fall. The days get a little shorter, the nights get a little longer, and I spend a little more time in the radio room listening. Topic 4 is scanner radio listening. I think Tom and I both have been doing a little bit of that lately, so we may touch on that. And then we thought we'd talk about maybe coax cables. And then lastly, if we have time and we get there, we'll talk about batteries and things like that. And then we'll do a wrap up after that. So that's where we're at for now. Let me check the chat. We've got the Nordlander in there, and we got Don Izzo. Hey Don, how you doing? Thanks for joining us here. I know it's kind of early for some people, especially out on the West Coast, but it's late for some people out in other parts of the world, Europe and beyond. And I know Tom has a lot of followers over there, so this may be a good time for them, even though it may not be a good time for West Coast U.S. So with that, let me turn it over to Tom for a few comments, and then I guess we'll start going down the list unless anybody has anything else they want to talk about.
Yeah, like I said before, the main thing is this is kind of open. If you want to talk about something else, or you have a comment about what we're talking about, or better yet, if you have a correction, as Rob pointed out, we're not experts. We want to share information both to you and from you. I think we're ready to go, Rob.
Yeah, like Tom said, it's just an open forum, so feel free to jump in and play along, so to speak. Okay, so the first thing that we had on our agenda was to talk about the Sangean ATS-803, which is also the same radio more or less as the DX440, which you can see behind me here. Now I'm going to try and see if I can switch over to a closer view of the radio. Hopefully I don't crash the stream when I do this, but let's see. Tom, you'll have to tell me if my audio and everything is still coming through.
Okay.
And if anybody in the chat wants to let me know if anything went wrong. But there's the radio. Can you guys see the radio? Now, Tom, like I said, you may have to look in the YouTube stream if you have it up. So I guess overview of this radio, I'll talk a little bit about it and jump in, Tom, if you have anything to add or if I say something wrong.
Yeah, I'm learning here.
Oh, okay. I don't know how much you know about these. So these were released, I don't know, sometime back in maybe the late 80s or early 90s. I remember I was a teenager, and I remember when these came out because my dad was an avid shortwave listener when I grew up, and it was just my dad and I when I was little and into all my life really. But he always had an old Hammerlin on the kitchen table, just like the one you have behind you, Tom. And he would listen on that. And then when these came out, he started thinking about getting one and was talking about it for quite a while. But my dad was what I like to call a financial minimalist. So he didn't spend money if he didn't have to. And he just kept talking about it. Well, I had started working, and I decided, I'm working now. I'm going to get my dad a nice birthday present. So when it was his birthday, I went to Radio Shack, and I bought this radio for him. And I don't think it was even that expensive back then. I think it was maybe, I don't know, $150 or something like that. Maybe it was $200. I don't remember. But anyway, I gave it to him for his birthday, and he used it all the time. He put it on the kitchen table next to the Hammerland and played around with it. But these were the hot receiver back then. These were the ones that everyone wanted to have as far as the tabletop receivers go.
I believe they were made by Sangean.
Yeah, they were made by Sangean. There was also like you said in the slideshow, the ATS-803. I think that's the model. Now I've only seen one or two of those at flea markets. I think the Radio Shack one, at least here in the States, was the more popular model, just because we had Radio Shacks everywhere, kind of a thing. But they were essentially the same radio, maybe a little different styling. Actually, I think the Sangean did have one feature that this one didn't. There was some kind of, gosh, I can't remember what it was. There was one feature it had that the Radio Shack one didn't. and for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. But anyway, what it is it's a it's an all band shortwave receiver tabletop, but for its time, it was the only one that was this size and actually worked well. A lot of the other ones that were around worked okay, but they didn't have provisions for external antennas, and they didn't have the PLL controls and things like that this one did. It was sort of a groundbreaking radio, at least from what I remember. So we'll take a quick overview of the radio, I guess, if you want, Tom. I mean, basically you've got, your on-off switch, you got the volume control. You've got a balance control, which is kind of interesting on this because there's only one speaker. And what the balance control did was this will receive FM stereo if you have headphones in it. So you could use the balance control with your headphones. So then, what else do we have here? We have a treble and a bass control. And then another nice thing about this radio is that it could receive sideband. So you can see here there's a BFO pitch control. This is how you would tune in sideband. I'll try and show that in a little bit. And then over here it even had an RF gain control that you could turn up and turn down if you wanted to. And then down here, these are the switches to switch between the modes, AM, FM. You can turn the BFO on and off, and then there's a lock so that you could lock the keypad so you didn't actually or accidentally bump it. In fact, my dad would always lock it because he had it on the kitchen table and he was always hitting the tune control by accident. So that actually came in useful because this does have a very light feel to it. You can tune it real easily. And I'll turn it on. We'll do a quick demo of that in a minute. So then up here, of course, is the LCD display. It does have a backlight. I think you can hit there. You can see it'll backlight, but it won't stay on. It's got a built-in sleep timer. You could use it as like an alarm clock if you wanted to. And then, the keypad. You can actually punch in a frequency if you want to go directly to a frequency, or you can tune around. It doesn't matter. And then there's different buttons for mode. You can actually scan with this radio if you want to. All kinds of features like that. And then the speaker here is pretty loud. This has got a nice sound to it. Nice clear audio. It was always a good performer. I'll spin it around here if my power cord will allow me. Just show you the back real quick. I don't know if that's focused or not. There's not a lot back here. It does have this arm, so you can tip it out like that and lay it down on your desk. And that's how my dad used it most of the time, just up on that bracket. Because it is, when it's up like this, it's kind of tippy. And then on the back, it's got an external antenna jack, which was kind of the selling feature on this for people who were really shortwave enthusiasts, because you could put whatever you wanted on there. My dad had a long wire on it, and it worked great all through the years. In fact, I've got an external antenna on it now. So I'll plug it back in here. I know it looks like the camera might be stuttering a bit in the view. Hopefully it's not freezing up too much there. But before I turn it on and go through it, looks like it lost focus again. Before I go through it a bit, I'll take a pause here. I'll check the chat. Let's see, who else is in there? Oh, Scratch Dog is in there. Eric, how you doing, Eric? Maybe we'll put it on 3885 in a bit. That's what my dad always used to listen to anyway, the AM window. And then Anime is in there. Hello. Thanks for stopping in. And then we've got the Nordlander saying, if you were to buy one portable radio for shortwave listening today, one that is currently on the market, what would it be? Right now, if I wanted a radio like this, I would probably go for the Texan PL660 or the PL, what is it, 880, Tom?
Yes.
What would you go for? What's your answer to that question?
I would go with the 660 or the 680, and then if you want to spend a buttload of money, they have the new 990 just coming out.
Oh,
but it's expensive.
What? Tell us a little bit about that if you know anything about it.
It's the successor to the 880,
Okay.
It looks very professional. Of course, the 880 also looked very professional. Same case, not the case of the radio, but the case that you put the radio in. They give you that case, that soft molded case to protect it. But I think it's like $350.
Oh, wow.
There have only been a couple of people that have gotten the pre-production ones, and they had some serious problems. They are just now, this past week, releasing the production version.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
But it's a little steep, but it looks really nice. Like the radio you're showing there, it really looks nice.
Okay. Well, maybe maybe after the initial newness wears off, the price will come down a little bit. What do you have any idea what the 660 and the 880 go for? Are those still both currently on the market?
Yes, and they're between 125 and 160.
Okay. I've got the 660 and I've been happy with that. I usually take it like when I go camping or even on any vacation. I bring that radio with me. It's a good performer, even on the internal antenna. I haven't used the 880 at all. Do you have one of those, Tom?
Yes. Matter of fact, I just did a show a couple weeks ago where Jeff, who is loaning me radios out of his collection, he bought one. So therefore, it should have been a newer version. And I did some side-by-side testing, and they both worked about the same. The biggest negative is trying to use the synchronous detection. It doesn't work very well.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That's good.
Other than that, they work fine.
And okay, so what was the model number on the new one? 990, you said?
990, I believe.
Okay. Well, I'll keep an eye out on that and see what.
Yeah, there are a couple of videos out there where people either got pre-production, which they had problems, or there's a new video out, I think came out last week, where the guy got one of the production release radios and worked pretty good. Still had a couple little quirks. The bad part is you as a user can't update the firmware. The firmware where the problems can be fixed can be updated at the factory.
Okay. Too bad you can't do it yourself. I'm sure somebody will come up with a hack for that at some point.
Yeah.
Let me check the chat here. Let's see. Oh, we got Farpoint Farms. Eric is in there. Good to see. He's another radio enthusiast and all around jack of all trades. I really enjoy watching his stuff. You never know what you're going to see. He's actually working on some free-to-air satellite stuff now, which has been kind of interesting, and some solar panel stuff. I've been really following that. That's he's got his hands in a little bit of everything. But anyway, he's asking. I have several shortwave units. I really like my Grundig portable that has sideband. Got it at Radio Shack years ago, but it does have the dreaded sticky plastic. Oh, okay. You have a couple of Grundigs over there, don't you, Tom? Do you have any problems with that?
I've got a number of Grundig.
Yeah.
And I know the one he's talking about with the stickiness. I did do a video, probably over a year ago, where I found a spray-on solution that will get rid of that stickiness, and it does work quite well.
Oh wow, what is it?
I can't tell you offhand. I might actually have it in this room someplace.
I got a spider running around on my desk here.
Oh no.
Anyway, let's see. Anime is in there. She says, "Cool. I didn't know that." Let's see. Nordlander says, "Can you spell that for me, Rob, on the chat? My hearing isn't the best." Spell what? I don't remember what I was saying. Don says Farpoint has a good YouTube channel. I heartily agree. It's a great channel. Like I said, Eric's got his hands in everything. I always like to see a variety of stuff, and like I said, you never know what you're going to see there. And it's all good stuff too.
Here is the cleaner that I use.
Oh, okay. Hold that up again. Wait a minute. You got to talk so it switches over to you.
Okay. Here is the cleaner I use. It is called Remover, and it's by Maxi or Max Pro. I got it off of Amazon. And I had the, don't remember the model number, but it's a little Grundig with the weather band. And boy, it was sticky as heck. And this worked. This actually worked. Only thing I found that does work. Alcohol makes it worse. Any kind of household cleaner makes it worse. This worked, at least for me.
Okay, good. That's good to know. Because, that happens sometimes with these old radios, that not just the Grundigs, but you get that sticky, weird stuff happening. And that's a good thing to know on how to clean that off. That's a great tip. Okay, excuse me. So what should we do now? Do you want me to put the camera back on the radio and we'll try and demo it a little bit?
Yeah, let's don't spend too much time because we got a lot of things to go over. But
Okay.
Yeah, please turn it on.
All right, well, I'll put the camera back on it. I think that camera might have been stuttering a little bit. I don't know, the feed on it's a little high resolution and my computer might be struggling with it a bit, but I'll fire it up here. And the angle I've got it at is a little hard for me, so I'm going to have to kind of reach around here. It's going to look a little funny. Any particular frequency you want to see, Tom? That you can think
Try
of?
the obvious ones, which is WWV at 5 and 10 megahertz.
Okay, let's do... I can't see it. I'm going to have to look at it through the camera. Okay. So I don't hear anything there now.
Do you have an antenna hooked up?
I do. Let me just make sure that it's on
Okay.
the switch is in the right position. Yeah, I can't see it too well. Let's try. Whoops. Oh, there we go. I can't see what I'm doing here. I didn't.
Of course,
plan this out.
shortwave right now is in the toilet.
Yeah. Oh, I can hear it a little bit. Can you hear it? So it's coming in a little bit. Now, actually, that is one thing I wanted to mention on this radio. I almost forgot. These radios, if you're going to look for one of these used, there's a common problem with these radios, and this one suffers from that.
Okay, that's what I want to hear.
Yeah, I
That's what
totally
wanna
forgot about that, and I know that's where you were leading me on, because I told Tom about this already. This radio is actually broken. When it comes to shortwave reception, it's very deaf. So you guys might have heard, there it is, WWV a little bit. But normally that should be a lot stronger. The reason for that is that there is a little field effect transistor that is in the first stage of the receiver circuit. It's basically the first amplifier that the signal hits when it comes in from the antenna. Those field effect transistors are very sensitive to static. And what will happen sometimes, especially if you have it on an external antenna, just a little bit of static will wipe out that FET. And somewhere along the line, that's happened to this radio. So shortwave reception on this radio is down a lot. So there is a common fix for it, and I actually have the part right here. I bought it from Radio Shack before they went out of business. There it is. It's an MPF 102 transistor, at least from Radio Shack. You can look it up and you can get, if you wanted to buy one from Mauser or DigiKey or something like that, you can get the transistor. And you can replace that transistor and the radio will come back to life and work like new. You obviously got to have a little bit of electronics repair knowledge and skill. It's kind of a tight board in there, but it's not impossible. I actually have another radio like this that I picked up at a flea market, and I did the repair on that radio and it worked. But other things failed on that radio now, so it's in my parts box. It's a carcass at this point. Spare parts for this one. But anyway, I do have the transistor. I just never put it in. So I need to do that on this. But again, keep that in mind if you're looking at one of these used. If the reception is down on shortwave, that's more than likely the problem. And this is a, less than $1 part. You'll pay 3 times that amount in shipping to order it online. Unfortunately, you really can't walk into a Radio Shack and buy it anymore, unless you're lucky enough to still have one in your neighborhood. I know there's a few around. I think Eric from Farpoint Farms found a couple somewhere in his travels. But anyway, it does work well on broadcast bands still. And I've got... Yeah. Okay, I'm getting a lot of static because I'm down here in the cellar and whatnot, but you can see that that's AM broadcast band, and it came right to life when I switched over to that. You can see the signal meter lit up. Of course, it's getting full-scale static from all the lights up here. And then it'll work just fine on FM, too. It's got a great FM receiver. In fact, a lot of people who are into broadcast band DXing use those radios. So that's where we're at with that. Any other questions about that radio, or is there anything else I should show, Tom, before we move on?
So that would explain the negative reviews on that radio. People not being aware of that failure and saying that it can't receive shortwave very well.
Yeah, that's probably what it is, especially since these are all quite old at this point.
Yeah.
And that was such a common problem that there's, I would say, probably a majority of those radios out there that, have that issue with that transistor. It just was kind of the weak link in the chain. So having said that, if you find one that has that issue advertised and you're handy with electronics, you may be able to pick it up for cheap and fix it and have a great radio. So if,
Is
if
it
you're into that
easy
sort
to
of
get to that part?
It's, well, I don't know where I put my carcass radio. Oh, it's right here. Let me see. I'll try and switch the camera. It might look better in this view. Here's my carcass radio, okay? So I don't have the back cover on this, and the boards are all kind of out. You can see it's not the easiest thing to do to get at, but when you take the radio apart, these boards are all in here nicely. This one's just been in the junk box for a number of years, but the transistor in question is right here where my finger is. So you just have to take the back off, and then you have to get this board separated so you can get at the back side and desolder it and then put the new one on. And when you're putting the new one on, you have to be careful that you don't zap that one. So you gotta work, with a wrist strap and that kind of a thing. You gotta be a little bit careful with it. But like I said, if you know electronics a little bit, it's a good, and if you can get it cheap enough, it's a good project, radio. And if you get it cheap enough and you're not able to do it on the first try, you can buy another transistor and try it again.
Or I can have Rob fix it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, if I don't get slammed at work. Huh?
Okay, I think we need to move on.
Okay, let me check the chat then before we do.
Okay.
Let's see. Eric says he's going to look into that cleaner that you showed. He's got at least 3 radios that have that sticky stuff on them. Yeah, I'm going to look into it too. I never knew about that.
Yeah, be careful. Just try it on one small spot and see if it works for you.
Yeah.
Don't smear it all over your radio at the beginning.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's see. Carl Dahlquist, he says, long live Radio Shack. Yeah, I miss it. I miss it when it was at its heyday and even, back in the 90s and stuff. I remember going in there all the time when you could go there by parts. Let's see. Anime says, it makes me think that movie called Pi, the sticky stuff. I'm not familiar with that movie. I apologize. Let's see. Somebody says, good afternoon from Greece, Eric. Oh, okay. We got somebody from Greece. That's cool. Anime says, Carl, I agree. I love my Optimus. Oh, yeah, the old Optimus Radio Shack stuff. I remember that. Actually, I don't think it's Optimus, but I have a Radio Shack receiver in my collection of what I'll call hi-fi receivers. That was my wife's before we got married. I don't know where she got it from. Probably her father. And that works great. That thing is awesome. Let's see. Eric says around 7.030 with the BFO on. Yeah, like I said, Eric, I forgot the shortwave on this radio is a little deaf, so we're gonna move on with that. But maybe I'll do. Actually, I'm gonna try and do a separate video of the repair here at some point in the future. So stay tuned for that. Let's see. Eric says Portocello, Idaho. I had the best Radio Shack I've seen in many years. Yeah, that's right. It was out there. I remember I saw your video, Eric, and I was blown away that it was still looked like a Radio Shack. That was cool. Let's see. Norm is in there. How you doing, Norm? Good morning. Norm's sort of local to me here. He says if you're within driving distance of the Boston area, there's You Do It. I've been past You Do It Electronics up there near Boston, and I've always wanted to stop in, but I've always been driving by it when I've been on a work trip. So I couldn't get in there, but someday I'll make a special trip to head up there and check it out. We've got a place here in Connecticut, not far from the ARRL actually. It's called Cables and Connectors. I think it's similar, but not quite as hobby oriented. It's got parts and pieces and tools for electronics. In fact, a lot of companies use it. When they're in a pinch, they need something right away, so they send their courier down there. But there's plenty of stuff for hobbyists there too. But You Do It is the place to go if you're in Boston. Let's see. Kevin's in there. Hello, KC30NO. Thanks for stopping in. And then Anime says if you ever go looking for that movie, it's named just the Symbol. The Symbol Pie. Okay. I think I know what you're talking about now. My wife might have watched it, and I didn't see it. I don't watch a lot of TV and movies. I have a short attention span, but sometimes she drags me into the movies, and they're good. So I'll have to ask her if she liked that one. Anyway, so yeah, I've been rambling on here for a while, and we did have sort of an agenda, I guess, that we were going to follow, but I'll flash that back up here again. And let's see. So we talked about the Sangean and Realistic DX440. Again, just a short overview. I'm going to do a repair video, and then we'll go through the radio a little bit more in future videos, so stay tuned. Let's see. Our second topic is more on electronics again, cleaning contacts. I'm going to turn that over to Tom, since he's the one that's been kind of dealing with that lately in one of his recent videos.
Okay, let me see if I can share my screen here. I think this is the one I want to share. Let me know if I'm sharing the right one, Rob.
We're seeing the agenda.
Okay, so right here, you should see a contact cleaner that I use. And as Rob has pointed out, I just did a show a couple of days ago where I repaired a radio. And the problem was the on-off switch contacts were pitted or burnt. And so I have used this product, CRC Cleaner, for a couple of years now. It replaces one that I used to get from Radio Shack, but Radio Shack is basically no more. And I thought, well, I'll try this one. I watched some videos before I bought it. I watched some videos on it, and this is the recommended by those people cleaner. And it's a multi-purpose cleaner and protection. So supposedly it's supposed to protect from corrosion coming back. And it's worked quite well. It does clean up. In other words, it evaporates so that it's not all over your circuitry. Don't remember if it came with one of those long straw nozzles or not. If it did, I've lost it because mine right puzzly doesn't have it. It does have a very fine stream, so you can get it into a tight spot. And it's safe on plastic, so it doesn't cause plastic to turn into gum. And I found this works quite well. Again, you can get this off of Amazon or other places. If you have you happen to have electronic store near you, they may have it in stock. I don't think places like Walmart carries it. And that's
Yeah,
about
so
it.
that's a good tip, Tom. You know a lot of people like to use deoxit, but that stuff is super expensive, and
Yes,
it sounds like this stuff is probably just as good and probably half the price. So that's a good tip.
yes. I actually tried a very, very small can of deoxit, which was about the same price as this 11-ounce can.
Mm-hmm.
And it works very well. But well, I used up that can in a hurry because I had a lot of things that needed cleaning. So I thought, well, it's a good time to clean all these things. And so I thought, well, let me see if I can find something a little less expensive, but still recommended by a lot of people. You can see up here, it's got 67 ratings and it's got 4.8 stars out of 5.
Okay, that's a good tip. I know, and like you said, the melting plastic. I got some contact cleaner one time, actually at that electronics store I was talking about in Newington, Connecticut. I happened to grab some, and I still have it because the first time I used it, it just totally obliterated the plastic in the item that I was cleaning. It didn't say on it anywhere that it was safe for plastic or not safe for plastic. I didn't even think. I just sprayed it on there and ruined whatever it was I was working on. So that can is sitting on the shelf and hasn't been touched since. You know, if I want to strip paint off of something, maybe I'll use it. But yeah, so this stuff is good. I do have a can of deoxit somewhere, but when that's empty, I'll take a look at this stuff. I've used the CRC products on my cars. They sell like carburetor cleaner and brake cleaner and things like that at the auto parts store too, and that stuff seems to work pretty good. So we'll take a look. Let me look at the chat here while we got a pause. Let's see. Anime says they joke about the difference between a numerologist and a mathematician. Okay. Well, I'll check it out. It sounds like it's my kind of thing. Let's see. CMVB69, howdy from Ohio. Thanks for stopping in from Ohio this morning. And then Anime says, my wife sounds really cool. Yeah, she is. She's real cool. And she puts up with me. So that's even better. Kevin is talking about the oxit. Yeah, that, like I said, that's good stuff. It's just pricey. So, you know, if you can save a buck or two and still get reasonable amount of performance, then I'd do it. Let's see. Anime says this info is super useful because there are a bajillion products to sift through. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's why Tom likes to talk about this stuff, and me too. We like to just share what works for us. Sometimes it's not always what's right for you, but at least it gives you something to start from and experiment with. Okay. Anything else on the contact cleaning stuff, Tom, that you want to talk about? Any more
Nope, that's it.
guidance? Okay. What did we have next up? Let's see. We have SDR Uno, version 1.40.1, discussion and features. Okay. So if there's anybody out there that doesn't know, SDR Uno is the software that runs the SDR Play software-defined receivers. Tom and I each have a couple of these that we play around with from time to time. They're great all-around software-defined receivers, especially for somebody that's new into the hobby. You can get their entry-level model, the RSP-1A, for, what is it, around $120 or something, Tom? Sometimes they go on sale a little bit less.
Yes.
It's
And
a great
you
great
can
way to get. Oh, go ahead.
You can get them from dealers in the U.S. It's made in England, UK, and they now have several distributors throughout the world. And one of them is, I can't remember the name of it. It's in Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
And And they have pretty good prices because if you're in the United States and you order it from the UK, there's a big shipping cost.
Yeah, if you order it, I think HRO sells it. If you get it from them,
HRO.
I think it's free shipping.
Yes, HRO, that's it. You
Yeah.
can also get them on Amazon, but the price is kind of pricey. It's like for the base unit, which is normally 100 and 125, they're charging, the dealer on there is charging 170. So
Oh, wow.
HRO is the way to go.
Yeah, and just for the record, I mean, we're not trying to sell anything here. It's we've been using these for a while. I've got a couple from SDR Play to review and use, for free. I'm not a spokesman for them or anything, but I really do think it's a great product. If they didn't send me these, I would have bought them. So they're good little radios, like I said, especially for somebody who's new to SDR. I think especially the RSP-1A. It's the right kind of bang for the buck perspective. You can spend more, and you'll get a little more performance, but you can spend less and get a lot less performance. I think it's great. The only problem with them, I don't want to say a problem, but the software can be a bit intimidating to use for somebody that's new to SDR or new to radio or just not necessarily computer savvy. There's a couple of different software packages that'll work with these, but there's a lot of controls and options with that. So when you first look at it, it's a bit intimidating. There is a little bit of a learning curve, but there's tons of videos out there that can help you through. Tom has made a bunch of them. I've made a few, and SDR Play has their own series on their website and YouTube that you can use. But anyway, that's all leading up to the discussion around they've just released a new version of their software, SDR Uno, to run those radios. And there's been a few changes and upgrades and a few bumps in the road, I guess, so to speak. As I mentioned earlier in the video, most of the summer I've been flat out with work and some family things that are going on around here. So I haven't had a lot of time to play radio. I've been aware of the new version. I've downloaded it, installed it, got it working, but I haven't played with any of the new things that they're offering. So I think Tom has. So let me turn it over to Tom and let him talk about that.
Okay, let me try sharing the screen again. And this is the one I picked before. And now we will go to, although this menu's in my way, get out of the way there, menu. Okay, here is the release notes. All this stuff is on SDRplay.com. They got a whole bunch of documentation. They got links to a bunch of videos. A lot of Rob's videos are linked in there. And here is the release notes. It just was released the 21st of this month. And I'm not going to go into detail about this stuff because there's just too much to go over. So I'm just kind of give you the highlights. They've added a couple of functions. What I'm looking for, and they fixed a bunch of little nits, what I'm looking for, and see if I got that page up. Let's see, I think it's this. Yeah, here is the roadmap. Now, before I forget, they have excellent support. You can go on their webpage, and if you have questions, you can do what's called a ticket and describe your question or your problem, and they will get back to you within 24 hours. I had a problem with installing this new software, and the software installed, but I went to run it, and it says the SDR Uno service is not working or something like that. And so I filled out a ticket. Within a couple hours, they said apparently it didn't install the most recent API. That's another piece of the software. And they said you can download that individually and install it. That should fix the problem. It did. So problem solved. Now, let me go back 1 second. Give it said. I guess it was actually the pre-release of this 1.4 had added adding plugins. So now they're allowing people, other people than their company, to write plugins, little utilities and stuff that you can add into SDR Uno. And one gentleman who just recently, as a matter of fact, he's still kind of debugging it, wrote a plugin, which they mentioned in their last webinar on YouTube, which gives you the display, the spectrum display with annotations up in the display of the various international broadcast stations. And of course, there are probably a half a dozen or so websites that maintain these listings of international broadcast stations, their frequency, other information, you know, what language they're broadcasting at a specific time. And this gentleman has written a plugin that you can, when you go to SDR Uno, they now have a button called plugins, and you can add this plugin. And they themselves, SDR Play, released 1.4 with like 3 plugins. And you can add additional plugins. So that's really opened up the software for expansion and more options. And like I say, I'm going to do a separate video on that plugin that I've been talking about that puts up on your screen in the spectrum display where the international broadcast stations are.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I probably should get a screen capture, and I had that, but I didn't. I forgot.
That's
so
okay.
Anyway, here is the roadmap of changes coming up for 1.41, 1.42, and 1.43, and eventually they will do a 2.0. And you got, like I say, you can go to sdrplay.com, look under downloads, and look under software and documentation, and you can find these release notes. Now, the one that I have been giving them suggestions for is the scanner option, where you can put in 2 options: a memory scan of a memory module that has all the frequencies that you want to scan, or you can do a band scan. What I have suggested for quite a while now is that when it finds a station and you have the option, it can store the information about that station in the memory panel you have open, that it also stores additional information, such as how many times when it was doing the scan, it hit that station. If you're doing the option where you say, continue scanning after so many seconds and keep looking for frequencies.
Yeah, that would be useful if you're trying to build a database. You know, you're
Exactly.
letting it do the band scan, it hits that frequency. You want to know if it's hit it more than once, because then, you know, more than likely it's a legitimate station as opposed to just some noise spike that it hit.
Yeah, and right now the scan does a lot of things, like you can, when it stores a station or frequency, it may not be a station, it could be noise, in the memory panel, you can go into the memory panel and lock that out.
Mm-hmm.
In case it's just noise or interference. So they're going to, here's the term right here. Actually, they're going to put the lockouts in a separate file. You can keep that separate, and it doesn't interfere with your memory panel that you say. Statistics and logging, that's what I'm looking for. This will not come out until 1.43, so it's going to be a while. And then use the memory panel thresholds as far as when it's going to actually open the scroll tree. So those are the things that are coming up. They're doing a lot of work, but the biggie that's out right now in their latest version is plugins. And like I said, I'm going to do a video of that one plugin that an individual outside their company has written this plugin. He's still working on it, so it still has a few bugs, but it's definitely something I was been looking for. So that's about it.
Yeah, and that's kind of like you said, that's a biggie because doesn't it open it up so third party people can write plugins for them and release?
That's what I'm talking. That's what I'm talking.
Yeah, they're not. So the plugins aren't necessarily from SDR Play. They're from anybody who's got some coding ability out there that wants to write an enhancement. They think something up or whatever. They can just release that.
Yeah, here's their plugin page, and what they are doing is after a person has written a plugin and their software people have checked it out, then they'll add it to this page. And I think, let me just check real quick here. Okay, these are the ones they put in which are working now. Adapt plugin for the digital audio broadcasting, which is not in the United States, unfortunately. A DX cluster.
Yeah, I've heard talk about that one.
If you're an amateur operator, and an audio recorder plugin, it's an enhanced audio recorder. And then down here, they'll be adding third-party plugins. And I think they had the one I'm talking about. No, they don't have it on here yet. It's called Fran, capital F, capital R, capital A, capital N. And it's, as you can see, it's not officially released. The guy's still working on it, but you can get it through the SDR Uno Facebook group. The file is stored up there.
Yeah, I downloaded it. I just didn't have time to install it. I know you tipped me off on it, but didn't get there before the stream. But I will play with it. Okay, so let me check the chat here, and then we'll move on to the next topic, I guess. So let's see. I think I got kind of far behind. Yeah, who's in here? Let's see. I lost track of where I was. I apologize, guys. Let's see. Wayne KI4UYA says, Home Depot and Lowe's carry CRC contact cleaner. I use it all the time and follow up with the Oxet. That's a good tip, too. Use the cheaper stuff for the heavy lifting and then just touch it up with the expensive stuff. I like that idea. Let's see. Kevin is talking about some stuff. I don't know. I've lost track of everything. I'm just going to have to skip down. Let's see. John Deere 620 is in there. He says, how did I end up as a moderator? Well, I needed a bouncer, so you're the guy. He's from Maine, and you don't mess around with people from Maine. Let's see. Does anyone make a plug-and-play SDR? That's from CMVB69. I don't know that there is a plug-and-play SDR like these. You can buy the RTL SDR dongle, but you still have to use the software, which is a bit of a learning curve for people. There's a couple of radios out there. Tom's probably more aware of them than I am, like the ELAD something. There's software-defined radios out there that are radios that they're software-defined radios, but they have a control panel and work like a traditional radio. And then there's these, like the SDR Play and the AirSpy and whatever, that are just black boxes and you need the software. But I don't know that there's like a hybrid or an easy one. Maybe the ELAD, but they're kind of pricey. Do you know of any more plug-and-play ones, Tom?
Boy, I do, but I can't think of it right offhand. But the ones that I'm thinking of, which is basically, if you look at it, it's your typical radio with knobs and everything. Plus, you can have software control. So it is standalone, plug and play, but I think it's over $1,000 for a receiver.
Yeah. I think we'll get there. I think as this technology matures a bit and it starts to trickle down a little bit. All this SDR stuff started out more for like the hams and the enthusiasts and people who are, kind of techie in nature, just like anything else. And then, I think somebody will come along and fill that niche at some point and make one that's a little more plug and play. I don't know when that'll be, but it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. But right now, I think you just have to muddle through. And it's not that, and I think it's just kind of a nature of the technology. There's just so much you can do with it that if you don't have a software like SDR Uno, you're kind of missing out in a way on it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but let's see what else. Don, the other Don is in here. Hi, Rob and Tom, N5 SKT. Glad to have both Dons in here this morning. Let's see, Ron D. Good morning from Lincoln City, Oregon. Ham radio outlet in Portland, Oregon has the RSP1A SDR. That's good to know. I don't know how many locations HRO has. I know I pretty much deal with the one here in Salem, New Hampshire. That's my local one. But I know there's what?
Rob,
Yeah.
the good thing about SDRs is there is a ton of support. There's tons of videos on how to get the software up and running. There are probably a dozen free software packages. For instance, another biggie is SDR console.
Yeah.
Lots of people supporting that, lots of videos. So if you're kind of a little leery of getting into it, just go out and look at those videos on SDR. It'll give you information on how they work and how to get the thing up and running. So don't be afraid of them. When we did the last show, Rob and I, one of the topics was SDR versus conventional analog radios. And I pointed out that I've gone to the dark side and I use SDRs almost exclusively.
Yeah, there's that's an excellent point, Tom. Whichever way you go, whichever platform you pick, there's tons of help out there, whether it's from the company that's selling the product or whether it's just users on YouTube or forums or wherever. That'll get you through the learning curve, and it's a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun learning this stuff and playing around with it myself. So that's kind of how I've approached it. As I go through, it's almost like the experience of learning it is almost as enjoyable, if not more so, than just using the radio to kind of tune around with.
And to give Rob a little plug, Rob has some excellent videos on the SDR Play products. I have a few. I wouldn't call them excellent, but I have a few.
Well, I think yours are pretty good, Tom. And my videos have just been me kind of, as I'm learning, I play around and I figure, well, I'll just share what I learned and throw it out there, and maybe somebody will find it useful too. And that's what a lot of people do. There's a lot of great content out there on these, like Tom said. Somebody figures something out and they just share it. And everybody's got a little bit of different take on it or perspective. So I recommend, you watch multiple videos, even on the same topic, because you'll get the full picture that way. Something that I may have missed in a video, Tom may cover, kind of a thing. So if you do go that way, make sure you spend a lot of time with the videos. Let's see. We'll go back down through the chat. I'm getting a little behind here. Let's see. John Deere, he says, I used to be the admin of a diesel truck site with 10,000 members. He was good at dropping the hammer. Now I have to be on my best behavior. Yeah. Let's see. Don N5SKT says it's good to have the root password. Don says he's really getting into OpenWebRx on his RSP1A. I need to look at that here. That's one of the things that's on my list. I need to play around with that. Have you done anything with that, Tom?
I use that a lot. The big advantage is, and what it is, it's SDR radios that people have put on the internet that you can use just like it was yours. Now, the software interface is different. Matter of fact, it's fairly simple, but you can go on that website, and there's a couple of them, couple different websites that do the same thing, and pick a radio throughout the world. They're all over the world, and listen on that radio, and that's an SDR radio. And it's another way to get used to using SDRs without any cost, totally free.
Yeah, that's a good point too, Tom. And we've talked about that before, but I'm glad you touched on it. Yeah, if you're thinking about playing with SDRs and you don't want to invest any money, just go online and look for the remote ones that you can control, and you can get used to kind of how they work and look and feel and what they do, kind of a thing. And it's not quite the same, but it's an introduction. And that's one of the things that I want to do is I've got these three up here, and I can only use one at a time, and a lot of times I'm not even using them. I'm working or doing other things. I'd love to just throw it up there and let you guys play with it. Somebody can come in and tune my radio and whatever while I'm not using it. I think that would be fun. But I'll get there one of these days. Like I said, it's on the list. Let's just see how long it takes me to get there. KD2QOJ is watching. Thanks, William. Let's see. Don says, hope their plugin API stays stable release to release so we don't have to update plugins every time we update SDR Uno. Yeah, we'll see. SDR Play is a small company. And I think I'm really impressed with how much that they actually do with the resources that they have. Actually, a lot of these SDR companies are small, not just SDR Play. I'm just most familiar with them, but they're all relatively small. Some of these people, that's not even their full-time job. They do it on the side. So there's just a lot of community effort in the SDR space right now. And it's kind of cool to see it kind of grow from all the people putting the input into it. Boy, let's see. John Deere says the only plugin I understand is an extension cord. Yeah, you don't give yourself enough credit. I think you know more than you let us know. Let's see. I wish it ran in a single application rather than opening several, says Aldi Moore. Flex 6400 is almost affordable. Yeah, that's one of the things that people complain about with the SDR Uno is it's got all those little windows that kind of pop up in whatever. And in one of the more recent versions, they've put a button in there so you can lock them so that you can minimize and maximize it all together. But it still gets a little clunky. For me, I'm used to that. I'm used to using like CAD software and that kind of a thing through my professional life. And that's how those softwares are in a way. There's just lots of stuff going on the screen. So for me, it's okay. But I know for people just getting into it, that's one of their complaints about SDR Uno. Some of the other software packages aren't quite like that. If you tried SDR Console or SDR Sharp, there may be a few others that are a little more, everything's all in one screen and you don't have to worry about the windows moving around, that kind of a thing. The only problem with those, at least with the SDR Play versions, is that SDR Uno supports all of the features. SDR Console and SDR Sharp will work, but they don't support every feature on every radio. The Flex 6400. I'd love to get a Flex at some point. Right now, it's just not on my. It's not in my budget, but I wouldn't mind playing with one of those someday. It's an interesting radio, and some point down the road I may do that, just not in the near future. But I know everybody who has them, really likes them. They're neat radios. I wouldn't even mind getting an old one, a used one, the 5000 or whatever, just to kind of mess around with. They've always had pretty good reputation. Let's see, Hack RF1 plus Portapack. Yeah, the Hack RF. I haven't played with that one at all. Have you done anything with the Hack RF, Tom?
No.
Okay. We'll have to look at that at some point. Let's see. What do we got? You can install, Don is saying, N5SKT is saying, you can install OpenWebRx as a PI image and just boot it up and it comes up configured. You know, I have to admit, I don't have a Pi. I gotta get,
Oh,
I got,
oh,
I'm way behind the times on that. I mean, you guys see my videos. I'm all over the place doing different things around here. And I was even thinking about that last night. Like, you know, that's one thing that I'm just way behind on. I've never had a Raspberry Pi in the shack, and I need to
I'm
get.
going to have to sing you. I'm going to have to sing you.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's just one of those things. I just haven't got there yet because I'm always fooling with other stuff, whether it be cars or motorcycles or fixing stuff up around the house or working. You know, I'll get there. I'll get there. Let's see. I'm going back that channel for that video. Okay. Let's see. Skywave Schedule app for Android is pretty cool. Basically an SDR using stations around the world, and it's free. Skywave Schedule. I haven't heard of that one. Have you heard of that one, Tom? Skywave Schedule?
Yes, I actually did a show on it.
Oh, okay. That's another thing I'll have to look at. See, that's why I do these shows, so I can learn from you guys. He says it blew him away how cool it is and that it's free. Okay, and then Cycle Camp. He says, do you use separate antenna for the SDR? And if not, what switch do you use? Let's see. That's Bill. He's one of the local guys. No, I just use my normal fan dipole for everything. I've got a switch. You can't see it. It fell behind the rack back there. It's really a panel mount switch, but it's an old, I forget what it is. It's a real high quality switch actually. But I use that to kind of switch between. It's only 2 positions, so I just swap the coax around to radios. Again, that's another thing I need to do around here is I've got this whole plan in my head for a antenna switch matrix and grounding system and everything, but you know, who knows if it'll ever happen. But yeah, right now a lot of it's just manual plugging antennas around kind of a thing. Okay, so John Deere posted one that he uses, an MFJ one. KA4UI, shame on me. Yeah, I know, shame on me. Like I say, I'm not a real ham. You know, a lot of people kind of bust me, but I'm like a part-time ham, I guess, is what I call it. I play radio more in the winter than I do in the summer, so maybe this winter is when some of this stuff will start to happen. The Hermes Lite 2.0 is a 325 radio that works like a flex if you want to get something and play with an SDR. Interesting. I'll have to check that out. I'll check that out. And Kevin says, yeah, no excuse. I need a Pi. I know. I'm not going to live this down now. Let's see.
Here's what I use.
Oh, okay. Yep. There you go. There you go. I've got this whole thing mapped out in my head. I even got a little schematic up there in my memory bank of how I want to do it with multiple switches and everything. Because I've got well, I don't have as many antennas as you do, Tom, but I've got a few. And
I just repaired a bunch of my antennas and antennaed them. I got 14 now.
14. I was going to say, I thought it was 13, but now you're up to...
Got another one.
Yeah, I think I've got about half that. Let's see, where else are we? Went out in the 103 degree heat and put up a disc cone for my RSP1. That's commitment. There you go. Yeah, that's what you got to do. Actually, around here, kind of the running joke is you got to put the antenna up in the winter in a snowstorm because that way it'll stay up. You know, if you put it up in the summertime, it's, you know, you're too casual, whatever. But if you're in the wintertime, you're thinking about it and you're doing all that reinforcement that you got to do. So maybe the same thing goes with the extreme heat. Let's see. Everyone needs a Pi pumpkin. Yeah. Let's see. I was in the IT world for the last 25 years. I have no desire to mess with a Pi. It just seems like work. Maybe someday. I'm just in relaxed mode. You know, that's a good point, Aldi. I did pseudo. I was sort of an IT guy for a long time. A place I used to work. I was a systems admin. I worked on manufacturing equipment, Linux, Unix, all kinds of stuff. And I was all self-taught. So I spent a lot of time just digging into this stuff and trying to figure out how it worked and messing stuff up. And I was on call 24/7 when machines were down and this and that. And I gave that up 10, 11 years ago now. I switched over to doing different type of work, and I'm still scarred from it. I think that's part of it. I really love Linux and Unix and playing around with that stuff. I really enjoyed it. But boy, when you have a manufacturing company on your back and some machine goes down that is making widgets and you're the one that's got to keep it going, Yeah, I have PTSD. But let's see. Sweet potatoes, please. I'm missing something. Okay, you can't have the SDR plugged into a separate antenna while transmitting on a nearby antenna. Yeah, that's a good point. I always make sure that I'm not transmitting. You can get the MFJ switch if you want to keep it on all the time. A lot of people do that. I forget what's the model number on that switch, Tom? Do you know?
No, I don't.
Yeah, there's a switch that MFJ makes. It's automatic, so you can have the SDR and your normal transceiver on it at the same time, and it senses the RF and cuts off the SDR. But otherwise than that, yeah, you're right. You've got to be real careful, otherwise you'll blow out the front end on your SDR. Let's see. Anime is talking about bourbon whipped cream. I don't know. It's a little early for that here. I don't know where you are, but let's see. I have a few pies, but they are embedded in other projects. Yeah, I'm sure Bill's got them all over there. Bill's a real good technician. I learn a lot from him. Cycle Camp. He keeps me on my toes. All of us around here. He's real knowledgeable with this stuff. So when I do get one, I'll let you know, Bill. You can walk me through everything. Let's see, only more. Scarred is the perfect term. I cringe when my wife has computer problems. Yeah, I do too. I hear the call, and yeah, I got to take a phone call or something. But no, my wife's pretty good with computers too. Actually, she usually figures out her own stuff. 1708. That's the model number on the MFJ switch. Thanks, John Deere. He said he put a link for it. Let's see. CycleCamp says he built his own and ground the input to the SDR when transmitting. Yeah, I remember you talking about that. That's cool. And Anime, no, don't worry about it, Anime. No big deal. We're all having fun here, right? Okay, so we're all caught up on the chat now. I know we got a little off topic there, but that's okay. We've gone a little bit long. Do you want to keep going, Tom, or should we cut it? I mean, I'm okay for a little while anyway.
Maybe we'll skip the scanner one.
Okay.
I didn't have a lot for that.
Okay. So we'll skip over the scanner. We can save that for another time. I actually have a scanner I want to do a video on. I've had it for a while, and that's also on my list to do a video about.
The good part is we're getting a lot of participation, and to me, that says we need to do more of these shows.
Yeah, we do, and it's all, I have to say it's all my fault, because usually the only time I have to live stream is this time, Saturday morning, and if I have to work overtime for work, I'm working Saturday mornings, and that's been the case all summer. Today was the first day I didn't have to work overtime in a while, or have some other commitment. The only other time I have available is late at night, and I know that's no good for you, Tom. So, we should.
I'll make an exception. Don't use that excuse.
Well, no, I mean, I don't want to. I mean, when I say late at night, I'm talking 10, 11 o'clock, so.
Hey, I'll make an exception.
All right. Well, maybe we'll do that then. At some point in the future, we'll plan it ahead of time so that you can, move stuff around in your schedule, and we'll do a.
Well, the other advantage is by putting it in a different time slot, we can make it, as far as the live show, make it available to a different part of the country.
Yeah, and that's the good thing. I know a lot of my YouTuber friends, they have sort of a set schedule that they keep for live streams. I'm not a huge fan of the live stream. I enjoy doing them with you, Tom, we have a lot of fun and the people come in the chat. But it's hard for me to commit to a schedule, partly just because, like I said, I'm not the biggest live stream fan, but just I never know what's going on around here in terms of, stuff. So what we'll try to do that at some point. We'll schedule an evening one, and we'll do it more in advance. We'll give everybody more notice, at least a few days, and then we'll take it from there. But a lot of times the Saturday morning seems to work out okay. I know we probably don't get as many viewers as we could, but at least we're doing it. At least I'm doing it. I know you do some live shows periodically, Tom. I think you're more comfortable with it than I am. But anyway, so we're going to skip the scanner stuff for now. Do you want to talk about coax cables?
Briefly.
Okay. So I'll stop that. Go ahead and...
Okay, let me get my screen up here again. And we'll wait for that menu to get out of the way. And want to see if I can get out. Darn menus right in my way. Shoot. Okay, that's the scanner one I was going to talk about. And I thought I had one. No, that's batteries. Oh, I can't find it, Rob.
You
What's
can't?
the problem? Zoom has a little menu at the top. It says you're sharing your screen, and I can't get that to go away.
Oh, I thought I stopped.
And so...
your screen. I see.
My screen, yeah, because I'm sharing right now.
If you just temporarily shrink your window, you should be able to see it.
Now, let me try this. Okay. There we go. That worked. There we go. Now, good suggestion. That's why we brought you here, Rob. Okay. There are many types of coax cable you can use to hook up your antennas. And the thing I wanted to just kind of briefly touch on, and this is a great chart. You go to Universal Radio, it's universal-radio.com. On there, they have this coax cable by the foot chart. And they have a couple of charts. And this lists all the coax cable that they sell. And over here is the prices, but you can see quite a bit of difference in prices. And for instance, let's just pick RG59. It's only 24 cents a foot. And then you come down here to like LMR 400 Ultra Flex. It's $1.59 a foot. And the thing is, I'll let Rob jump in here in a second. The situations are different when you're transmitting versus just only receiving. I don't believe you need as good. You don't need this expensive stuff, although it's nice to have. It gives you low loss. You don't need this expensive stuff. I typically use RG58 and 59, the cheap stuff. There's go ahead, Rob.
No, finish your thought. I thought you were done.
Okay, there's another chart. There's two other charts down here. And there's a power chart and an attenuation chart. If I go to, I think, attenuation chart. Okay, this shows you, actually it has both charts. There's the power one. This shows you the attenuation of the signal from the antenna to your receiver or transmitter. And it shows it on the various frequencies, and it's per 100 feet. So again, you can see like here's RGA 59 at 50 megahertz. Attenuation is 2.4 compared to the Ultra, which is 1.7, and the big fat RGA, which is really thick and heavy, is 1.8. This is important if you're going to transmit. I personally don't think it's important if you're only receiving, and I therefore get the RG58R, RG859 instead of the more expensive stuff. Okay, what do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I get depends on what you're going to do. And again, Tom and I, we listen more than we transmit. At least I do. I think Tom does too. We're more listeners. And when you're talking about that, now again, if you can afford the more expensive stuff, the lower loss stuff, then by all means go for it. But if you're focused on shortwave listening and you look at the chart here, you can see that in some cases it's diminishing returns. Go back to that loss chart.
Okay.
There. You're kind of, you're spending a lot more for not as much gain. So I tend to go with the RG8X. Most of the time it seems to be a good balance between cost and performance. And I keep a lot of that stuff around because sometimes I do use it for transmitting. And then that way it's not so bad. So like if you look at the 8X, it's 2.1 at 50 megahertz. I guess we were looking at that column. And then if you go down to the LMR 240, it's 1.7, which really isn't that much different. You know what I mean? So, if you want to get the next boost in performance, you'd go to the LMR 400, and then you might see a difference, kind of a thing. But yeah, again, for receiving, especially if you're getting started, use what you can get your hands on, is what I always say. Any antenna, any radio is better than no antenna and no radio. And you can experiment and see what works for you and then kind of move on. So I will say, though, for my ham station, a few years ago, I found an LMR 400 clone, if you want to call it that. There was, what was the name of the company? Jeffatech. I saw it advertised somewhere. It might have been in QST, might have been on the internet, I don't remember. But they make an LMR 400 like wire. LMR 400 is, as you can see, it's trademarked. That's the Amphenol, Times Microwave is owned by Amphenol. That's their product. So it's going to be a little expensive. Amphenol's a good U.S. company. They make a good product. But I found that this Jeffatech company is also a U.S. company. And at the time I bought the coax, they were making their coax in New York somewhere. So, but it was I think it was like half the cost of true Times Microwave LMR 400. So I took a chance on it. And I'll tell you, that stuff's been great. When I moved into this house 10 years ago, that's what I bought. And I ran a bunch of it out to my antennas, and it's great. So that's another thing you want to consider is if you want, the good coax, shop around a little bit. You don't have to necessarily buy the Times Microwave stuff. You're not going to go wrong with it, I don't think. There's enough people out there that have had success with it and commercial people using it. But for an amateur station, especially if you're listening, there's other alternatives out there. But again, the flip side of that coin is there's some pretty ratty stuff out there too. Some of the stuff you got to be careful. Some of the stuff on Amazon and eBay is junk. Whether it's RG59 or anything, it's just not that good. But to Tom's point, for just getting a receiver on the air, it doesn't, at least in my experience, seem to be as critical as other applications. So, and I think that's the point Tom's trying to make.
Yeah, the one other thing, my experience, for a while, I used to get my cable from Radio Shack, the Radio Shack brain, and that stuff was terrible.
Yeah, no good.
The shielding, there was very, very little shielding, and it was just junk. So if you see, like Rob was saying, you see some Radio Shack coax cable on eBay, I would steer clear of it. Now, maybe other people had to have a different experience, but boy, the stuff I got from Radio Shack was terrible.
Yeah, what I found is, well, with a lot of things, but coax cable in particular, since that's what we're talking about, if you buy it from like a ham retailer like Universal Radio or HRO or wherever, they typically have decent quality cable, whatever you're buying, whether it's RG59 or LMR 400 or whatever. They're selling a decent quality product, and you can kind of rely on that. So I mean, you got to weigh that out. You got to look at your budget and that kind of a thing. And there's certain things that as you get into the hobby or just life in general, you learn what types of things you can kind of skimp on, and what types of things you need to spend a little bit on. And I think, like to Tom's point, if you buy a good high quality RG59 or an RG8 or whatever, that's going to work just fine for you, as opposed to the more expensive stuff, especially if you're just starting out. Now, VHF, UHF, that's a different story, but HF, for years when I lived at my old house, I ran RG8X to a dipole, and I worked the world. It was fine, no issues.
I guess that's another thing, Rob, that you just mentioned. It will depend on the frequency you're listening to.
Right.
If you're just HF, then it's not as critical. But if you get up into VHF and UHF, the coax is a very important part of listening to those frequencies.
Yeah, like if you're putting up a scanner antenna, a lot of times those will come with, RG59 or something. But and that'll work okay. In fact, I've got that in the garage right now. I think I've got a scanner antenna in the attic of my garage and a length of, it's either RG59 or RG8X, I don't remember which, on that scanner, and that works fine. When I'm out there working on the cars, I'm hearing all kinds of stuff, which is interesting because I usually have trouble with UHF because of the hills around here. So that's working fine. Now, I wouldn't necessarily want to transmit through that. If I wanted to set up, say, a 440 ham radio out there in the garage, that might not be the coax I would use, just because of the loss. You can see, RG59, 7.6 dB loss at 440 megahertz. That's considerable. So there you might want to take a look at it. But yeah, just for receiving, and especially if you're just getting started, I think your point is good, Tom.
Yeah, as you can see from this chart, you get up in the higher frequencies, and those numbers, from 30 megahertz, 2.5 on this one, goes up to 24. So that's one thing you have to consider too, is frequency.
Yeah, but I mean, generally we're talking more like the HF stuff and maybe lower VHF, that kind of a thing. But yeah, there's definitely options out there, and there's a lot of information on the internet about coax that you can read. So let's see. I've been missing the chat here. I'll kind of try and get caught up a little bit. Let's see. Bill says, crimp versus solder versus mix. Let the coax wars begin. Yeah, there's a lot of discussion about that, whether you should crimp your connectors or solder them. I think for receiving, crimp is fine. Transmitting, especially higher frequencies, yeah, I would solder. Let's see. Bill says, I do wish coax came in more colors at a reasonable price. My tags always get ripped off. Yeah, that's a good point. Why is coax always just black or gray? Why can't we get colors like wires so that you know what's what? I like that. I use the colored electrical tape, or sometimes I use zip ties on the end of the coax, and I'll put like 3 zip ties, and I know, okay, that's 6 meters, or whatever kind of a thing. But let's see. Anime says, I'm actually way too new to really know what that means. You'll get there, Anime. You keep watching all the YouTubers bunch, and all the info will soak in. Especially Josh, Ham Radio Crash Course. He does a good job breaking everything down for the new guys. Let's see. I have a couple of runs of RG218. Yeah, 218 is good stuff too. Let's see. John here says ABR 25.4. Okay, I'm not familiar with the ABR coax. Anime say my dad's electrical box had colored electrical tape. Yeah, that's what a lot of people end up doing. Let's see. Cycle camp. Attenuation charts are important. That's what Don Izzo says. Yeah, whenever you're looking at coax, check that attenuation chart and keep in mind what frequency you're going to be on. Let's see. Okay, I think the stream might be hiccuping a little bit. My internet connection might be slowing down a little bit here. It should come back soon, though. Let's see. Attenuation charts. Tom's audio is a little harder to hear. I don't know if you can turn your mic up a little, Tom, or something. John Deere says, I want as much RF actually getting out the door. I agree. Like I said, when you're transmitting, you really want to look at it. And if you can afford the higher quality coax, it's a good idea to use it when you're transmitting. I definitely agree. RG59 is 75 ohm, not 50. Yeah, I think, like I said, you wouldn't use that for transmitting on a ham radio anyway, but for receiving, it's probably okay. In fact, I remember back in the day when my dad was messing with scanners, those were all 75 ohm input, I think. So the scanner antennas that he bought, like for the car, they all came with RG59 on them. VHF, UHF for 2540 or 25400. Balanced feed line only way to do it. Yeah, that's another point. Balanced feed line, if you can get away with it, is super low loss. If you get the right feed line, you can make it yourself. A lot of people do that. You just have to be able to work with it. Coax is obviously more convenient. You can bury it, that kind of a thing. That's what I have here. I have my coax sort of buried along the yard because I can't, the way my yard slopes, I can't get open line up to the antennas. It would hang down too low or be obstructed by other metal objects and things like that. So I haven't fooled with open wire line, but a lot of guys do. That's a good way to go, especially at HF. Let's see. Try and get caught up here. I might have to skip a little bit. Let's see. LMR 400 or better for VHF, UHF used here. Yeah. Typically, that's what I have too on my 2 meter. It's a little hard to work with in the car, so I just run RG8X in the car for VHF, and I don't really run UHF here. I just receive. But if I ever were going to put a UHF able transmit radio and antenna here, I would definitely use that. But for receiving, like I said on the scanners, what I have is fine. And I think that's Tom's point. See, Don says HRO is 5 minutes from him. That would be dangerous if HRO was too close. We used to have a ham radio store here in Connecticut that was about a half hour away. It's actually right around the corner from the ARRL. They went out of business a couple of years ago though, but yeah, we used to make trips down there and have to make sure you leave your credit card at home. Bill
Yeah,
says,
we used to have a Lafayette, a Radio Shack, an AES, and then a private one called Chester.
oh wow.
And that would be my Saturday thing that I did is I went through all the stores. They are now all gone.
Oh yeah, that's too bad. That's too bad. We had Lentini's, which was the ham and CB radio store right next to the league. And then there was another one in Hartford or East Hartford, Connecticut. It was called Hatcheries, and they sold radio stuff. And that went out of business right when I was starting to get into radio stuff when I was a teenager. I think I went there once, right when it was going out of business, or at least they weren't going to sell amateur stuff anymore. They converted over to just business stuff, and it's gone now. But we still have that electronics store down there near the league, but they don't sell radios. They just sell parts and pieces and kits and that kind of a thing. Cycle Camp, he's saying UHF VHF is less than 50 foot So just use 8x. Yeah, that's kind of the rule that I've used too, Bill. I'll use 8x on 2 meters, like I said, in the car, 15, 25 foot run, whatever. Or my secondary garage radio is 8x. That's a 25 foot run up to the antenna. No worries there. Local repeaters I can hit with a good HT antenna. Yeah, you're in a better spot than me. You're down there in the valley, and all the repeaters are above you. I'm over here on the other side of the ridge. I have a hard time with HT antennas here. I mean, there's not a lot of like high hills here in Connecticut, but there's enough to cause problems, at least for me. And there's a lot of iron in the ground around here too. I think that has something to do with it. Let's see. One Fanger is in there. Hello. Thanks for stopping in. Bring your own pink, headed out. Okay, thanks, Don, for stopping in. N5SKT is going to head out. 7-3, thanks for joining in. Messi and Paloni Coax. Excellent. Have you ever heard of that? That's from Sandra. Have you ever heard of that, Tom?
No.
I haven't heard of it either. We'll have to look that up. Yeah, 50 feet. 25 down to lightning arrestor. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you've got a good setup over there, Bill. I know. Bill does everything the right way. Let's see. Kevin, use 2 coaxes and the ground, use centers as parallel line. Okay, Kevin's talking about parallel coax feed line. He made a comment earlier. I think I missed it. And he's talking use 2 coaxes and the ground, use centers as parallel lines. Have you ever heard of that, Tom? Using two coaxes like a balanced line?
No, that's new to me.
That's an interesting concept.
I've heard of using coax for an antenna called a bazooka antenna.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those too.
I tried one and it didn't work good for me.
Okay.
I built it wrong.
Let's see. KB1WQK is in there. That's my sister and my neighbor. Good morning. I got to come up and see your driveway here later.
You have a sister?
I do. I have 3 of them.
Wow.
One of them's a ham. The other 2 are not.
Awesome.
The other 2 moved to North Carolina on me.
We need to get her on the show.
Well, okay. I'll talk to her about it.
All right.
I don't know if she'll do it. She, I'm going to pick on her here for a minute. I don't know if she's still watching because this chat's, I'm getting away from me. But she made a video just goofing around in her kitchen about some egg timer or something. I forgot what it was. But she was just goofing around. And she sent it to me on Facebook Messenger. It was good. It was really good. And I told her she needs to start a YouTube channel, but she hasn't yet.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So maybe we'll get her. She's been on a couple of my videos. We did a Parks on the Air sometime over the winter. She was on the video a little bit. She might have been in a couple others, but we'll get her on. I'll get her on the show. Let's see. Sometimes I use this is One Fanger. Sometimes he uses RG6 on a shortwave radio for receive. It's going out to my south-facing rain gutters. That's cool. I think my dad was using RG6 for a while, just the short run to get from this radio to his long wire that he had strung between the house and the barn. Worked. But are you using rain gutters as your antennas? Because that's interesting. I know people have tried that. One of my buddies here locally who lives in an apartment, like 3 days after he moved into the apartment, he went out when it was dark and he drilled a hole into the gutter and put a screw in there so he could tap into it. And he had pretty good luck with it. So I'm curious if you're using that. He was actually tuning it up. I think he tried transmitting through it too. I don't remember now.
It wouldn't work for me. My rain gutters are plastic.
Oh yeah, there you go. I haven't never tried it, but I want to. I know there's people out there they've played around and made videos about all kinds of stuff, turning them into antennas. I think that's fun. People like watching that. Let's see, Aldi Moore, no amateur radio sales within 250 miles of me. Yeah, that's a bummer. Well, I'll tell you though, I haven't been to a ham radio store in years, ever since the one locally closed. We've got the one in New Hampshire, but I have to admit I've never been there. I've ordered from them, And I've driven by it, but I've never been able to stop in. Every time I've been up there, it's been for work. So one of these days. I know my sister's been there, though. Maybe she'll take me up there. Bring back Heathkit. Yeah, I think they tried that a couple times, didn't they, Kevin? That would be cool.
Yes, they did.
Let's see. Jerry says, what's the word on the new ARRL CEO? I haven't heard much. I kind of have been staying out of that. I got involved in that a little bit last year, and I kind of regretted it. So I don't know that much about the ARRL or what they do or anything. And I've just been kind of, I don't want to say keeping away from it, but I know some of my friends in the YouTubers bunch have reached out to him, and so far he seems like a real decent guy. He's real enthusiastic about the hobby and the future. I think he's going to bring some great ideas. I know the last CEO had a lot of good ideas out there that he had floated out there, and they didn't get implemented yet, or some of them have, I guess, but I don't know if they were all his ideas or not. That's all politics. I don't have time for that. We'll just hope the new guy does a good job and follows through, and I think he will. I think he'll be okay. I think they were a little more careful in their vetting process this time, and hopefully he sticks around for a while. But we'll see.
I just saw one of the users group where ARRL is going to start charging $50 for a license.
Yeah, I know. That's another hot topic that's coming up. We were throwing some emails around the YouTubers group about that. I've got mixed feelings on it. I understand it costs money to process these licenses. And just from some of the stuff I've read, there's other countries out there where it's super expensive. The $50 is a bargain compared to that. I know it's not what we're used to, and I think it's prohibitive to new hams, especially young people.
Yes.
Yes. You've got a guy that's 15 years old or a girl, lady, whatever, they're trying to get their license. They're going to school. Maybe they don't even have a job. They're trying to work through college, whatever. $50 is a lot of money to charge somebody for a license, especially if they're just getting started out. I think I'd rather see them bring back fees for vanity calls, things like that, and leave at least the entry-level technician license, let it be free or a very small amount,
Yep.
kind of a thing. That's sort of my take on it, but I haven't really digested the whole thing yet. I don't know. What do you think, Tom?
I agree. I think it's going to hurt the new people coming in, and they're just going to say, never mind. I could see where you might want to increase it a little bit, but I think they went over the top. 50 is way too much.
Yeah, and I wonder if some of it is, kind of like what we do at work or whatever, where you say, okay, well, I'm going to ask for $50, but I really only want it to be 15. They're going to ask for more and then say, oh, we're going to compromise down. But at the end of the day, they probably really don't want, if you know where I'm getting
Yep.
at. So I hope that's all that is they're just throwing that up there, and then we end up compromising on something and whatever. But not to get political, we don't need to give the government any more money than we have to, and I'll leave it at that. But no, it does cost money to process this stuff, and it is, I guess it is a fair thing to have to pay for that processing fee, but $50 is kind of steep. If it actually costs $50 to process those licenses, they got to look at the system, make it a little more efficient. Let's see. John Dare says, you need a tower. Yeah, maybe someday. At least for the VHF stuff, UHF stuff. But not right now. I don't need that. Actually, there's been a couple times where I could have gotten towers for free or next to nothing, and I turned it down. Let's see. More quality info here than hours of YouTube video out there. Okay, well, we appreciate that. Thanks, Wayne. They're an Italian company, great coax. Oh, the whatever it was, that other coax company, he says they're Italian. Okay. And I'm probably missing chats here, and I apologize if I've skipped over something.
But it's good to have all this feedback. I mean, that's what this show's about.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun to interact with everybody.
Yeah.
I didn't think we'd even get this much because we kind of started kind of early. So you know, it's great to see the activity. Let's see. Johnny said, "Well, your wife got her steps. You need a tower." Yeah, yeah, she got her camper. If you guys saw the video a couple weeks ago, we got a camper. That was hers. But no, there's some other stuff going on I'm not going to get into right now.
That was her camper. Okay.
Yeah, kinda. She's wanted one. I've been on the fence. I like the idea of it, but I'm lazy. I don't want to maintain another thing. But she,
Yep.
she really wanted it, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. We went, just to get off radio topic for a second. We went a couple of weeks ago. We took the camper for a week. We went up to New Hampshire, and her parents, they have one of those huge motorhomes. They were going to Florida every summer or every winter for a while. They did the typical snowbird thing. So we went camping with them. You know, we parked next to them. Of course, our camper's only a pop-up, so we felt kind of inferior, but next to their 40-foot bus. But it was a lot of fun. We were able to go up, spend some time in the campground with my in-laws, do some sightseeing up there in the mountains of New Hampshire. And there was activities for my son at the campground. We had a lot of fun. It was a great week. So we did enjoy it. But I think if it was just me by myself, I probably wouldn't buy a camper just because just don't want to deal with the maintenance. But she enjoyed it a lot. We wanted to go this weekend, but we couldn't pull our act together and find anywhere to go. So we didn't end up going, but maybe one more time before the season is out, we'll go. But we'll see. We've got other things going on around here that are getting in the way of stuff. So, I'm not sure what we'll end up doing. But yeah, that was her camper. I've got all my toys. So it was time for her to get something. I got my motorcycles and I got my radios. So she needed something. She had fun decorating it. That's for sure. Let's see. Well, I'm getting way behind here. Kevin, tie the grounds together and centers as, yes, parallel lines works great. I'm going to have to look into that. That sounds like an interesting way to do it. Okay, Sandra says, check out the specs on that Italian coax. I'll look at that. Let's see. Anime says, ham ladies, do it. Yeah, we need more ladies in ham. And that's why I was glad to see my sister get her license. She gets involved in one of the local clubs, and there's a few ladies up there, and they kind of, I don't know if they run the club, but they do a lot with that club, and it's good to see. Let's see. Lori is saying it's okay to pick. Yeah, okay. 74 ARB is in there. Hello. One Finger ARRL is an organization dedicated to compromise, just like the NRA. Yeah, the ARRL has a tough job. I mean, look at all us hams. You put two hams in a room and they're not going to agree on anything. But they do a good job. And I've been down to the ARRL for the tour. I've operated W1AW a couple times, and it's a great organization. The staff down there is just top notch, and there's a lot of volunteers too that put in a lot of time. The board of directors gets a little political, and that's what turns me off. I don't like the politics end of it, kind of a thing, and just leave that do its thing, and but put that aside. Everything the ARRL does is great. People argue it's a little behind the times, and maybe that's true. But they'll get there. They definitely have some decent resources and some good people down there. FCC will charge $50, not ARRL. Yeah, I guess it's the FCC that's charging. I think the ARRL will probably fight it. Isn't TikTok free? What universe does the ARRL live in? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know I know what TikTok is, but Not sure how it ties in. They do not want an educated population. Well, I don't know if you're talking about the ARRL, but I think they definitely want hams educated. They have all those publications and stuff that they put out to help us understand radio theory. Let's see. 74 ARB. What do you guys think of joining a ham club? Is it worth it? What do you think, Tom?
I think it depends on the club. Now, I used to be a member of the Clearwater Amateur Radio Club, which was a huge club. This was 15 years ago, and we had speakers every meeting, a lot of participation, Q&A. It's a great club. Well, I don't remember why, and I used to do the newsletter. No, never mind. I don't know why, but we somehow, the person that had a publishing company who was publishing our newsletters for us stopped supporting us. So we stopped the newsletter, and kind of coincidental, the attendance dropped way off and it never recovered. Well, it did recover, but when it recovered, there were new people in charge, and it never got back to what it used to be. And I went to one a couple of years ago and did a presentation, and there were like 6 people there. Now, maybe it was because of my presentation.
No, I doubt that. Yeah, so my take on it is I belong to a couple of the local clubs. One of them I'm more active with than the other. I belong to a small club here in Eastern Connecticut, and it's in years past it was much more active than it is now. But for me, that suits my personality. I'm more in it for the social aspect and just hanging out with like-minded people. I don't get how do I want to put it? I just don't have the time to commit to like serious activities like a lot of the bigger clubs do. Like some of the bigger clubs around here put on these fantastic field day events that take tons of planning and whatever. Whereas the club that I belong to, it's more of a casual club. We'd get together for field day and just do whatever. It was more of a barbecue than a field day. And I personally like that. I belong to a second club that is a great club, stand-up club. A lot of people have been in this club for 30, 40 years. Really well reputation in the area. And they run a local repeater that I use all the time. And I joined that club just because I use the repeater a lot. And I felt like, well, I'm using the repeater, I should support the club. But it's a good club. They do the fox hunting that you've seen on my channel too, the videos. They support that fox hunting program. So that's a lot of fun. But I don't go to their meetings just because I have to pick and choose. I can't go to both clubs. So I go to my low-key club because I like that. But I do support the other bigger, more active club as well. So I guess that's a long way to say that, you have to find a club that suits your personality and suits your interest in the hobby. And that may evolve over time, like for me right now, I'm working full time, so I don't devote a ton of my energy to ham radio or radio in general, but someday that may change. And then I may want to get more involved in the bigger club that does more activities because I may have more time to devote to that. So I think ham radio clubs are good, and I encourage participation in them if you can find one that suits your needs. Even if you're not an active member going to every meeting, sometimes it's good to just be on the email list and see what everybody's doing. You can get a lot of good information from them. And to Tom's point, it helps show interest in the club and keep those rosters up and things to show the interest in the hobby. Let's see. KB1WQK says lots of good information for sure. Well, I don't know good, but there's information, I guess. Let's see. Psychocamp says he joined the local club because I wanted to help support the local repeater. I use all the time. Well, yeah, you and I are in the same boat there. But I know you've gone to some of the meetings. I really enjoyed the meetings as they usually had a tech topic presentation at each one. Yeah, I've heard you talk about the club, and the club we're talking about is the Bears of Manchester, Connecticut. They do a good job, and one of these days I will get to one of their meetings because they do have usually a good topic or presentation. There's another club that my sister belongs to, or two clubs here over the border in Massachusetts, the Hampden County Radio Association and the Pioneer Valley Repeater Association or something. They're also pretty active clubs, and they do good tech presentations and still have pretty good following. In fact, I think their club, those two clubs in Massachusetts, they have some younger members that are energetic and devote some time to the clubs. So they're good ones to look at. Justin Time is here. Good morning. Great ham radio show. Great interaction. Keep it up. Glad you like it, Kevin. As I said a couple times, I myself am not all that comfortable with live streaming, so it's good to have the feedback that helps me feel like this isn't a waste of time. Anime. Sorry about the lag. My last comment was pro ARRL and against the $50 fee. Okay. No worries. We got you. And like we said, the $50 fee seems a bit steep. The FCC is not her favorite. So, yeah, a lot of people have mixed feelings on the FCC, I guess. I can't say one way or the other. I've never really had any other interaction with them other than them processing my license stuff. Let's see. Kevin says, sadly, I'm working weekends because I teach my kids now on top of working 40 plus damn virtual schooling. Yeah, I know where you're at. My wife's been doing a great job with that with my son. We haven't gone back to school yet. I think school starts September 8th. And they're doing here in our school district, they're doing 2 days at school, 3 days off. But last year when he was home all the time, she was doing a great job managing that for the most part. She was working from home too, but her job is a little less demanding than mine, so she was able to kind of help out most of the time, and I would just jump in when she was tied up on a meeting or something. But it's been stressful for everybody. I wish it would just get back to normal. Let's see. Ham radio clubs can be clicky. Yeah, that is a good point, Wayne. The clubs can be clicky, and that's another thing. There's clubs that are not, and you got to find one that works for you. Let's see. Aldi Moore says internet destroyed ham clubs. Yeah, that's a good point. In a way, maybe it did. But in a way, I think it's also brought some things out that wouldn't be there. And I like to use the YouTubers Ham Radio Bunch as an example, as sort of a pseudo online club of like-minded radio and video enthusiasts. And we all have a lot of fun making videos and doing ham radio stuff. And that wouldn't be there without the internet. We're spread out across the country and from different walks of life and everything. So it's killed some things, but it's also brought in other things. It's just change, I guess, one way or the other, if you want to look at it that way. Justin Time says, how do I find out about clubs in my area? I think the ARRL has some information on that. I'm not exactly sure what page to direct you to, but I think they have lists of affiliated clubs. There may be a zip code thing that you can put in there or something, and you can kind of see what's what. So you might want to check that out. Bill says he comparison shopped a few clubs and attended meetings before actually joining one. Yeah, that's a good point too. Depending on where you are, you may not have an option. But like here in Connecticut, we've got a small state with a fairly dense population. There's a bunch of clubs around, and there's options. So you can shop around. Let's see. John Deere says, I'm a commercial fisherman, so my way is the only way. That's why I don't do clubs. Everything is in an argument. I can relate to that. I'm not a commercial fisherman, but I tend to have that mindset. And that's why I stay out of politics too, because I don't understand sometimes the bigger picture. And like you, just get a little fed up sometimes with stuff, and that's why it took me a while to find a good club. But I found one that's sort of apolitical for the most part, and we don't worry about that kind of stuff. We just enjoy each other's company and play radio when we get around to it. Kevin says we have a lively Aries club here in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. We have some Aries activity around here. It's fairly active, but it's a bit, I don't know. I don't want to say disorganized, but it's I've listened to the nets, and I don't know. They fight with each other a lot on the nets, so I've stayed away from that. Cycle Camp may be able to talk more to that. I know he's participated in some of that stuff. Let's see. Always enjoys the live feed with 74 ARB enjoys the live feeds with Tom. A wealth of info. Well, that's good. I enjoy doing the live feeds with Tom. It's a lot of fun. I'm not a big live streamer, but when Tom's there, it's good because we can talk to each other. Although I've been doing most of the talking here for the last little bit, reading the chat. So, but we're caught up on the chat, and I'll turn it back to Tom. I know it's been running quite a while here, so maybe we ought to wrap it up. I don't know. What do you think, Tom? You got anything else?
Yeah, I think we ought to wrap it up, and I think we're probably caught up with the Q&A from the chat. So
Yeah.
Unless there's any new questions, I think we ought to give it a wrap.
Yeah, we probably should. We've been going, 2 hours now, I think.
2.5.
Yeah, well, you and I were on before, so yeah, we
Yeah.
both probably should go. I know I've got to get out. School shopping weekend for me. I gotta go get my son some clothes, so we better get going with that before you guys see my wife show up back here and want to know what I'm doing. But anyway.
But even though it's run long, that's good. We've had lots of participation, and that's what we want.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I like the participation with the chat. I like talking to everybody in the chat. I like talking to you, Tom. All that agenda that we put up there, those were all Tom's topics. He always has great ideas for topics. So yeah, I hope everybody else found it enjoyable, and we'll do it again. We'll try to do it more often. And again, it's mostly me. It's mostly my schedule that limits it.
Well, if you don't have time, I'll just do it with your sister.
Okay, that sounds good. She can fill in. She'll do a better job anyway. Like I said, she did that little spoof video, and it was excellent. And if she really puts her mind to it, I'm sure it'll be even better. So yeah, we'll get her on. But okay, I guess that's it. I'll wrap it up. So 7-3, everybody, thanks again for joining in. We appreciate all the support, and look for us again soon. 7-3.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.